To understand if the human body can be changed unnaturally, Nazi Germany performed experiments on 1,500 sets of twins. For example, sewing the bodies together to create conjoined twins. When one of the twins died during the experiment, the other one was also killed. Dr. Joseph Mengele wanted to understand the similarities and differences in the genetics of twins. He also wanted to understand whether genes can be changed to create new genetics with specific characteristics. Parents to twins identified them to the officials. They had hoped that their kids might be saved from the gas chamber, however, they had no idea what would happen next. One of the twins was used as a control, the other one participated in experiments like amputation and forced insemination. The team injected different color dyes in twins' eyes to see if they would change colors. They compared their bodies and studied the effects. About 1,500 twins unwillingly participated in this study between 1943 and 1944. Out of these, only 200 survived. In the Japanese Covert Biological and Chemical Warfare Research Unit 731, doctors conducted appalling experiments on live and dead prisoners of war. These experiments included vivisections and planned infection of people with plague, gonorrhea, and syphilis. More than 3,000 people died in this study. In this study, males, females, and even infants were used. The guards sexually brutalized the female prisoners, leading to pregnancy. Doctors performed vivisections without anesthesia. Some had limbs amputated or organs removed. The prisoners were not given food and water to evaluate the length of their survival without essentials. They were made targets to test grenades. They went through appalling frostbite tests. Finally, this study ended after Japan was defeated in World War II. American Lieutenant Colonel Murray Sanders visited Japan. He granted immunity to the physicians involved in the study. In return, he asked for the data collected. In Guatemala, without any consent, doctors infected people with syphilis and other sexually transmitted diseases in the 1940s. The study intended to test medication for curing these diseases. 83 people lost their lives in this devious experiment. John Charles Cutler, a doctor, conducted a series of frightening experiments in Guatemala between 1946 and 1948. Over 1,300 soldiers, prostitutes, mentally ill patients, prisoners, and even children participated in this study. The team injected these subjects with sexually transmitted diseases like syphilis and gonorrhea without their consent. Doctors wanted to determine the effect of penicillin on the prevention and treatment of venereal diseases. The team paid infected prostitutes to have sex with prisoners and spread the disease. David Reimer, an identical twin, had his penis damaged during circumcision. John Money, a psychologist, advised David's parents to raise him as a girl. However, David had no idea about the truth. And at the age of 13, David began to feel uneasy with his new identity. Finally, the truth came out. Later, he committed suicide. In Manitoba, Canada, 2 identical twin boys were born in 1965. David Reimer was one of these twins. During his circumcision, his penis was damaged beyond surgical repair. At that time, David was 7 months old, and his parents consulted John Money, a psychologist. He recommended the parents set up David for sex reassignment surgery. For John Money and his team, this case became an experiment. They explored the social learning concept of gender identity. John Money asked both the twins to engage in multiple experiments. In one of those, he forced the twins to rehearse sexual acts involving thrusting movements. David played the bottom role. John gave him estrogen hormone for breast development. However, David had no idea about any of this. It is only at the age of 13 he realized that he did not identify with being a girl. He talked to his parents. Finally, they revealed the truth. He underwent the surgery to reverse the sex reassignment. In 2004, he committed suicide by shooting himself, mainly due to unresolved conflicts with his parents. At Willowbrook State School in New York, mentally challenged kids were exposed to hepatitis infection. Started in 1955, this study lasted for 20 years. The only reason for conducting this unethical experiment was to evaluate newly made injections against hepatitis. Willowbrook State School was one of the biggest state-run institutions in the 1950s. It was home to 4,000 intellectually disabled kids. In 1955, Dr. Saul Krugman initiated multiple experiments. The doctors infected these kids with hepatitis. The team collected the stool of 6 infected patients and created samples. Afterwards, they added these samples into the kids' food and chocolate milk. The study lasted for almost 20 years. In 1987, the officials shut down the hospital. Krugman tried to defend himself by making a disputed statement. According to him, these kids received great care in his institution. Therefore, this was the best chance of finding non-consenting subjects. He believed in a state-run institution, kids were going to be infected with hepatitis anyway. He died in 1995 and defended his study until the end.